Hi everyone, I'm Scarlet with Bloomberg Quicktake and Bloomberg Television. Welcome to the Cornell Tech at Bloomberg Speaker Series. You know how it works. I sit down with leading figures from the world of technology. We're talking about thought leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs. And our goal is to bring you engaging conversations that'll raise compelling questions and produce new insights. If you want to check out our prior episodes, you can find them on the Inside Bloomberg page on YouTube, as well as on our podcast, Cornell Tech at Bloomberg, which is available on all major streaming platforms. Now, in this month's edition, we are joined by Rob LoCascio. He is founder and CEO of LivePerson. This is a company that uses artificial intelligence to create human-like conversations between customers and brands, companies essentially. In his 26 years since starting the company, Rob has survived the dot-com boom and bust, the Great Recession, and now the pandemic. Rob, thank you so much for joining us, and in person too.
Thank you.
How exciting. Okay, so like so many of the founders that we meet with here, you were kind of born to be an entrepreneur. It's in your bloodstream, really. You grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Your dad started a lot of businesses. What type of businesses did he run, and how involved were you?
So my dad actually, one of the first companies he did was plastics in the 60s. That was tech. And so he was always sort of ahead of the game. He got into computers in the 80s. But it was like my dad was basically the first 5 years, he would love it and then just kind of blow it out. So I kind of saw this behavior of like start, stop, but all sorts of things. Credit bureaus, real estate. He just loved innovation or innovative thinking and new things, but he got bored pretty quickly.
So as a result, he loved the beginning part of it.
Loved it, yeah.
Not so much the rest of it.
No.
Okay, so your family's fortunes were up and down. It was really volatile.
Yeah.
And you've talked extensively about how that was difficult for your family, for you, to kind of see the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. Why was that volatility appealing to you? Because you've gone into the same line of work.
It's interesting. It wasn't. It's like I think entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs because they went through a period in their life as a child of a lot of insecurity and uncertainty. And the reason you want to be an entrepreneur is because you want to have greater certainty over your life by running something. Mm-hmm. And so when you have this extreme, like I went through a lot of extremes as a kid, they kind of taught me a lot, but they also drove me to want to control more than just everything I can in my life. You know what I'm saying? Everything I can, especially around work. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this same sort of history.
Have you ever worked for anyone else?
I had a brief moment out of college. I worked for a company for 6 months. I did chemical trading around the world, and I was fired because they downsized, and I was the youngest employee, and they let me go. And I remember
So you were kind of last in, first out.
I was totally last. And matter of fact, it was a global company. And a fax came in and said, fire me. And I manned the fax machine. So I saw this person you have to terminate. My name was on it.
So you knew you were going to be fired before they told you?
Yeah, then I had to hand my termination to the boss who looked at it and looked at me. He's like, oh, I have to fire you. And then they took me to lunch, I remember, and they said, what did you learn from this experience? They really liked me. I was young, out of college.
Yeah.
I said, I'll never work again for a company in my entire life. This is the worst I've ever seen. I got fired by fax. And I just kind of got up and walked outside, and I cried, picked myself up, and said, I'm just going to continue. I want to do something on my own.
Okay, so if anything, that reinforced your belief that you have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
That you cannot rely on anyone else.
No.
That you will only get left out.
This is what I did. It totally reinforced my belief system that I need more control over if I'm going to live my purpose, live my destiny. I can't have someone else dictating that for me.
Okay, so you've said that because your family was so entrepreneurial, that whole experience helped you handle the high degree of uncertainty in running your own business. Do you think that ability to have a high threshold for uncertainty is something that you can learn as an entrepreneur, as an adult, later in life, or is it something that has to be inculcated in you as you're growing up during your formative years?
This is a very unique thing, and I think I've got a lot of entrepreneurial friends, and if they're honest, they've had something in their life pretty major. And so I think if you've had this kind of personal impact in your life, and I had this, plus some other things in my family that affected me, it was interesting because when you don't understand it, you will then do bad things with it. And that's what you see with some entrepreneurs. You over control, you overdo things. And if you can get your hands around how that experience as a child formed you and you can use it as a gift, then it becomes a power, because I can handle uncertainty at a level that I don't think is normal. Like going through the .com and what I experienced through that, that was not a normal thing. It just wasn't. And it was like we had to lay off a lot of people in the company. In 9/11, we were here, and it was this whole thing. But I could be at peace in the most crazy, chaotic, uncertain situations. I actually find a lot of peace.
So I'm going to go off script here for a moment. So when the pandemic hit and the city was locked down, you were not panicking. You were like, okay, we'll just roll with this.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to everyone in the company, and I just was a calming force because I'd been through it. And I said, first we have to lead with empathy, because I learned about this. And I know I heard a lot of CEOs said this, but I learned after the .com and during 9/11, I learned there that if you try to make people feel good about the experience, like macro events, like you could die, like 9/11, if you were living here, you thought, I could die. The pandemic, I could die. If you start, don't worry about it. Oh, you got to get up. Don't worry. We're going to fight this thing. That's what I remember. There was somebody who did that in my office during 9/11, and everyone hated him afterwards. And I meant,
why? Because it rings false?
Yeah, because people are like, I'm scared. And you're telling me we got to get up and sell. We can't let the terrorists. So I remember the speech the guy gave, and it was a very uplifting speech, but it fell short. And I remember thinking, I just got to listen to people, listen to them, hear them out. During the pandemic in April, I got a call from my HR head, and my legal head, and she said we lost an employee, a 23-year-old in Seattle, died. And I had to call his family because he's from China and he had no family here. And this just was like, okay, this is something I didn't expect. Now I have to deal with this. Now the company's going to deal with the death of an employee. I have to just listen to what they're feeling, not try to dictate what I believe they should feel, because you can't do that in these macro events.
It's interesting that you can come into that with a sense of calm as opposed to a sense of everything's in disarray, because that's kind of what our government went through, and it filtered all the way down.
You kind of have to start bending time.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing I've found is that when you get hit hard, when you get impacted on something, you start bending time. If you start moving into the wake,
yeah,
the wake pulls you, and it can pull you somewhere you don't want to go. So if you stop and you start bending time and you take it down a second, the wake will remove itself. The boat goes away, the sea calms, and now you can look around and say, where am I charting in this thing? Am I following the boat? Am I going this way? Where am I going? I need to take a group of people with me. Mm-hmm. They're relying on me to do my work, and they have to feel like I have a plan, and they have to feel like I understand their needs more than ever.
How can you learn that without having gone through it yourself? I mean, how does someone learn that? If they're an entrepreneur, they're a founder, they're young, they're starting their own business, they're hiring up, is this something they can learn?
Because I've been doing this so long, and even 20 years as a public company CEO, my learning has been through
trial and error.
And so I've just taken a different path. I have had great mentors in my life. I've had people that have told me to. I read a lot. I think that gets you only certain places, because no one wrote anything about, like the handbook. I remember when the internet was imploding and 9/11 happened, and there wasn't a handbook I read or something I learned in school. It was like, open a page about terrorist attack. What do they say you should do?
Yeah.
It was more like, let's bring everyone together, create more community around this, chart the way through. But I'm here to learn. I'm also here to make mistakes. I'm also have to forgive myself, and I also have to be apologetic if I do something that maybe isn't right. And that's hard, because you're taught as a leader, be confident. Don't show that you feel insecure
or weakness of any kind.
It's so, in one way, people want to see your strength, that you're calm, but another way, they don't want to see that you're disconnected. And if you do make a mistake, which you will, you just got to apologize. Like, you can say you're sorry. It's a very powerful thing. Like, I've said sorry a lot, and you say it, and then people forgive you. and you move forward.
Got to own up to it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to your early years. I want to hit upon your ability to be so self-reflective a little bit later on, but you graduated from college in 1990, and aside from that short stint where you were working for someone else for 6 months, you basically started your own company pretty quickly after that.
Yeah.
It was creating informational kiosks that were placed on college campuses. What did you learn from that experience? What mistakes did you make, and what ultimately prompted you to close up shop?
Yeah. So a couple of mistakes. I mean, I hired everything wrong. I hired the wrong people. I hired the wrong advisors.
Well, you hired your friends?
Yeah, no, I just hired. Yeah, I probably would have been better. I just hired people, and they were the wrong people. And I hired not all of them, but I had a terrible lawyer, terrible accountant. Terrible. It just wasn't. It wasn't for me, and they weren't terrible people, by the way. It just wasn't for me. And then I learned a very interesting lesson. I'd seen the internet. Kiosks, I did these interactive kiosks with digital video, which back in 91 was unheard of. You wouldn't have seen it. It was revolutionary. And I'd seen the internet in 93 and I thought it was a joke. And there was a bunch of us, people were doing CD-ROMs and like digital media companies. And the internet was like text and links, and we were like, oh my God, this is terrible. This thing will never work. Joke, 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 joke. And I'll never forget this. In 95, I put up a kiosk at NYU. It's the crowning jewel in the Student Union building. We had Capitol Records as a customer. They sent over a recording artist, this guy D'Angelo, to sing a set in front of it. Thousands of people are gathered around this kiosk. I'm like, my God, I've made it. This was my dream. And I get a call from one of my customers, Northwest Airlines. And the woman calls me in the middle of the event and says, do you do websites?
They didn't have any understanding of what you were doing at all.
No, she advertised on the kiosk, and this woman ran the college marketing for Northwest Airlines to promote, and we did this, but she was just asking because she had seen the internet, and she was seeing the power of it way ahead of me.
I see.
I said, do you guys do websites? Because I think the web's, it's interesting. People could get it from a thing called a browser, and they don't have to go to a kiosk. She said, then they won't have to go to the Student Union building.
Right, they can do it from their own
dorm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. I said, yeah, we do websites, which we didn't, but I said we did. I hung up, and I remember just thinking, that's it. We're done. And from that very phone call, I just started to shut the company down. I literally just...
You're like, we're behind the curve. This is not where
I'm like, I'm going to get wiped out. This is ridiculous. Like, I'm going to miss this whole thing called the internet.
She never followed up with you again?
Yeah, we built a website for her. That's what we ended up doing.
So, yes, she followed up, but it just wasn't the same company.
Yeah, no, what happened was, they actually, strangely enough, Northwest Airlines fired the entire college marketing group, including this person. So I built a website, and they never even went live with it. But what it taught me was one thing. Distribution, the ability to touch people overtook the quality of the media. Like, we thought digital video was better than text, but that...
Because it was a high-quality product.
Right, but the bottom line is text websites could touch millions of people where a kiosk could touch thousands. So I shift my thinking, like, do things that allow people millions to touch. Don't think about the quality of, like, a video or content. Think of the distribution of it. The scale. Scale
matters.
And I didn't have that perspective. So everything now, when I went forward, was like, in tech, is like scale, 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 scale. How are we scaling? Who's touching it? How many more millions?
And quality, where does that rank? It's not secondary, tertiary, or?
It's a balance. Obviously, if it's so low quality, no one will touch it. But you're balancing the quality of things to the scale of things at all times.
So how does that impact how you hire the kinds of people you recruit for those positions? You're not as concerned about maybe the technology or the how it appears as you are with making sure that distribution is sorted out first.
Well, it's a cycle. You know, a building company is a series of S-curves, and depending on where you are, if you're at the beginning of your company, you don't think it's scale. You think of quality. You think of uniqueness. Like, we always built products that are super unique, and it didn't matter that a lot of people didn't touch them at first. You know, like, it's you understand there's a certain scale to it. There's a certain scale to your operations, like who you hire. Are you going to hire someone? I always tell entrepreneurs, don't hire some big company person to come in when you start, because they need resources. They're used to resources and scale.
And that's the one thing you can't give them.
You can't give them. And they need to go out and sell for you. They need to go out and create code. They don't need to manage coders. So it's interesting, because there's a mistake entrepreneurs can make at the beginning. Then you get to a place where you keep people around who don't want to scale, and I've seen that, And that then they hold back the business because they don't repeat processes. They don't create machines. And then you have problems when you're trying to get to millions of people or thousands of customers or really bring the business to the next
So in
level.
the beginning, you need workhorses, essentially.
You always need like
The doers.
we still do player coaches. Like I'm a player coach. Like that's the hardest thing about being a CEO of a company. Unlike a player in sports, like the guys coaching the teams are rarely on the field. In business, you're player coaches, and I like to hire as leaders player coaches. It's just our culture. We don't like people who don't like to get their hands in what they're doing.
Okay. So you then started your own company, a second company that led to your creating LivePerson. But this was sparked by a specific experience, a frustrating experience of you just trying to buy something online. And like so many entrepreneurs, like it was a problem and you're like, I have a solution to this problem and here's what it is.
Yeah.
What was the situation?
Yeah, so at 95, I shut down the other company. I moved to New York City. I started building websites like the Northwest Airlines just to make some money, to not starve. And what I started to realize is that there was a big piece missing. And this is what happened. I went to Dell's website and I need to buy a computer. I'm on the website and I couldn't get everything answered. So I hung up my dial-up connection, got on a call. And I'm talking about the website to the agent. I'm like, I'm on the website. I configured the thing. And the person's like, I don't have anything to do with the web. Explain over everything you wanted. And so I was like, whoa, why can't I put the agent at the actual transaction? And so I invented web chat for the internet. It was like, it didn't exist back then. It's just funny to think this many years later. But I said there should be a little window. You should chat, ask a question. It'll go to an agent. And that's what I founded. And that's what I created for the internet.
So that the agent knows where you are on the internet, on their website, and you guys can talk knowing that you're on the same page, literally.
Yes, and they can sit there and help you and get you the shopping cart and help you pay. And it just didn't exist. It was like a novel experiment, and it worked. Obviously it helped me build this company. But at the time, just to look back, because it's been used billions of times by billion people probably everyone's used it once.
Did you file patents on this?
Yeah, so I had the first patent. So in 1998, I filed the first patent. 99, I got funded. We got funded. We raised $3 million, and then we went public a year later. So it went pretty quick after I invented it.
But what you do right now is not web chat.
No.
So how did you go from web chat to what you do now?
That was a tough one. So 7 years ago, I always felt that conversations should be digitized on the web. Like, as in, I don't know why people pick up a phone and call an 800 number and sit on.
Okay, you're talking to one of the people who do that. So
yeah,
I have my reasons, but
I know, and you said you're a millennial, not millennial, you're a Gen Xer, so am I. And I used to do this, but it's still a very frustrating experience. And so,
well, yes, I do have to psych myself up for it. It's like, all right, I have to put aside 30 minutes and be prepared to be frustrated, and maybe I'll have something on TV at the same time, so I don't get so annoyed.
Yes, even the Saturday Night Live did a skit last week.
Yes.
You see that one? Yeah, on Spectrum. So I'm like, it's just such a joke, and so I just feel that. That digital conversations should be the main way we do it, not picking up the phone. But the web chat, at its best, our best customers, 10% of the conversational volume went through chat, 90% stayed on traditional voice. So I knew we weren't going to get there. So 7 years ago, I was like, we're all messaging using Messenger, WhatsApp, Facebook, iMessage. And I'm like, why don't we just align to consumer behavior and create a messenger service for brands? And that's what we pivoted the company, stopped developing chat, and we went after Messenger.
Okay, so the name LivePerson can be kind of confusing because you're not facilitating a conversation between a customer, me, old school Gen Xer, and an actual human being. It's more like a computer proxy of a human being. Explain what LivePerson is and what it isn't then.
So we started on the messaging side with human agents. And then we realized, because we have an extraordinary data set as a company, every month we generate about 80 million conversations on our platform. If you've got this type of data, you have the ability to do pretty amazing things in the technology world, especially with AI. AI is powered with large data sets. So we could look at these data sets and say, look, we've got millions of conversations around how to pay your bill with your telco across 10 of the largest telcos in the world. We can see which conversations make consumers happy and which make them sad. What if we could take the happy conversations and automate those, make those bots? And so we started to track down that. That was about a little over 3 years ago, and we hired a bunch of people from Alexa, the Alexa team. And we started to go
Wait, you
after.
poached from Amazon, essentially.
We poached from Amazon because
Okay.
I went out in the world and said there's like Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home were the best. I didn't think Siri was that good, and so I ended up picking a lot out of the Alexa group. And I saw that they liked it because they were only dealing with Amazon's intents, so Amazon's data set. But those engineers are looking at this data set. Oh my God, you've got the data set of the world of business. We could really automate every business
It's a
conversation.
lot wider than just what you can buy on Amazon.
That's correct. So basically, they said they were really excited, and that drove this belief that I had. I never liked the machine. I never believed in it. But as I started to understand the power of what we had as an asset, the data, and what we could do with the machine learning technologies, we could go after it. And that shaped my vision for a greater vision for this company than just a communication pipe for human contact.
You are not a tech guy by training, right? I mean, I read that you were an English major.
English major, yeah.
Yeah, and also you had business.
Business, yeah.
Business and English major. Okay, so you're not a coder. You didn't have an engineering background. So how hard is that for you to come in from this different perspective and have to go find that expertise outside?
Well, I had to learn how to code. Like, you need first principles if you're doing what we're doing as an entrepreneur. Like, I needed to learn how to code. So my first company on the kiosk, I learned how to script and code, and I learned it. I'm not an engineer by trade, nor would I ever want to compete with any engineers we have. I can't, not even close. But it gave me a perspective on the logic and understanding of how that brain works.
Okay.
And then how do we apply that to creating something? Because I'm a creator. Like, I want to create things that don't exist in the world and give them to the world. And technology allows me to, that's my clay. So I understand it, and I'm able to work with those groups, and I'm understanding the what we can do. Now, I do lack one thing, which is good. I don't know enough to think we can't do anything. So sometimes I'm like, I don't get it why you think we're stuck. I don't get why there's a box around what we're doing. I don't get it. And that pushes me to just keep asking more questions and say, I don't get hung up on the tech.
Right.
I just think we'll figure it out.
Right. Explain to me why this doesn't work. Explain to me how we can overcome this.
Like AI, true conversational AI, which Amazon Alexa is not. It's a command. Turn on the lights, play music. You don't talk to it. So everyone says it's very hard to create conversational systems, but we're doing it because it's nested intents. It's a very complicated thing. But you can do it if you break outside the mindset of what Amazon Alexa did, because Amazon Alexa went down a path. They spend like $3 billion a year on it, and it's junk. If I spent $3 billion a year, we would have something that would like pick you out of bed, give you a shower, like massage you, take you to work, pep talk you, check your health, make sure everyone in your family's okay, and move on. Like, it's a lot of money for something to say, play, music. It's they went down a path. It's the wrong path.
So LivePerson, you had a mission, you knew what you were working on. It IPO'd right before the dot-com bubble burst. The share price went from the IPO price of $8 to under 15 cents in about a year. So that must have been pretty devastating. Talk me through what that was like and how you had to pivot as a result.
It was shocking, but it was free. Remember,
what do you mean it was free?
Freeing.
Freeing.
Every bad thing has a good thing, and so I was freed because when your stock is that low, you can do anything you want. You're no longer fearful of the public because the public has given up on you, and so we knew we were on our own. And there was nothing to worry about at that point. We weren't pleasing anyone. The analysts were gone. They all got fired or they quit. There was just nothing there.
But you just couldn't raise money either through a stock sale.
That's correct. So we went into a massive restructuring in February of 2001. We fired 140 out of 180 people. And then it was extreme.
You kept 40 people
Only
on.
40. And people were like, you can't run a public company with 40 people. Well, we only had $2 million in revenues. So my CFO and I made a plan. We saw we couldn't survive. We only had $7 million in cash. We were burning $2 million a month. We had $10 million in cash, burning $2 million a month. We need to get that down immediately, or we were going to go out of business. And we did it. So you just got to deal with reality. I think a lot of times you just don't deal with reality because it's hard. And I think if you just face reality, the rest of it's kind of sort of easy.
Is there any decision from that time that you still second guess today?
No. We did something extraordinary. The team of people there, we did something that most .coms were wiped out. My generation of leaders and companies got wiped out. And it wasn't until Google and them came around, they're the second generation. But my generation, that we founded the internet and the technology stacks like Java and all that stuff, it just was hard when we were working on it. And that group got wiped out, and they all went different ways, and most of them didn't go back. I found it quite sad, but we powered through it, and I'm proud of it. I don't think there's anything else we could have done. We did it right, and we made it. We're here today.
Did any investors stick with you from the beginning until now?
No. There was a person who picked up 20% of the company when we were like 17 cents a share. And I think he sold out around $14 a share, but he ran it. That was a great run for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had a lot of long-term shareholders. We have long-term customers. Yeah, but no one from day one except myself, I think, and my mom. So
there you go. So let's talk a little bit about LivePerson now, because you have talked about it as a replacement for call centers, traditional call centers. What are the cases where a one-on-one conversation with a customer service agent, the kind that I prefer, is still preferable to what LivePerson offers? Because you've made the case that it's better to do what LivePerson does, which is have a conversation with a machine, essentially.
Based on what I know and the data we have as a company, I think only 20% of conversations go to human beings if we do this correctly. A lot of what's in our way is there's a lot of legacy back-end systems that we can't access today. And the human is just sitting between you as a consumer and your wish, your intent, and a back-end system where you need to process.
That's incompatible with.
That's correct. So that's why I say, hang on one second. They're not doing anything. It's a machine. They're not, so they're accessing a machine that's just not accessible to you. And so the goal is to get you accessible to it. The other part is sometimes you do what we call nested intents. You say, I want to pay my bill, and then you talk about, hey, can I add a new line to my phone? And the machine's like, whoa, I'm confused. So you have to be able to understand there's nested intents, how we talk. Sometimes there's stream of consciousness. And the computer's not so great yet there. It's getting better. And we build a lot of tech there. But we're close. I just think the humans are there. Sometimes you have to talk to a human for compliance reasons.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Like I know some customers, you want to cancel an account, they make you talk to a human.
Right.
They want a shot at you.
Right.
So there's some reason, if you can't pay your bill, like because you have financial hardship, they want to talk to you as a human.
Okay.
But I don't even think you need a person in that case. You could just message someone and talk.
So one of my coworkers was saying that the best way to get, your plane ticket changed without paying a fee is if you talk to a woman and you say that your boyfriend dumped you over the weekend and you're devastated. I mean, she actually said that this happened for real one time, and the person was so nice on the other end and was like, okay, don't worry about it. I will waive the cancellation charges or the change fees, and I will also kick this in for you. And she's like, it works every time. Now I go to it all the time. This is why people like talking to human beings, because human beings understand each other and can empathize and relate to you, and will sometimes surprise you like that.
There's a name for these types of customers, and they're put in a certain queue because they're trying to take advantage of the. Yes, they're trying to take advantage. We see this across customers, like they're routed into a queue of troublemakers because there's a rule. Remember, that contact center agent is not allowed to do things on their own. They can get fired. So they're not allowed to give those discounts. That's a rule that's already baked into the system, and they're an arbiter to it. So
they're following a script as well.
Totally. They're not allowed to go, you know what? God, I had the same experience. I'm going to give you a free ticket. They'll get fired. So that rule can be in place to help people who need the real help. But a lot of times people try these tricks all the time on a human, but they're in a rule set. They're not allowed to go off the rules. Very few brands allow it, especially like airlines, banks, insurance companies. You're not allowed to go off the rules, or they have trouble. They'll have trouble. With regulators, is a whole problem.
Okay. Well, I mean, increased automation often provokes fears of lost jobs. And in this case, if you're telling me that your technology is better than traditional call centers, that means a lot of people are going to lose a lot of their jobs. And I know that you've talked about how automation is an opportunity for some of these people who work in the call centers to actually get better jobs. Yep. They can upgrade what they're working on. They can design bots and be change leaders in this AI-driven conversation. that may be the case, and I certainly have seen reports on this. You have, for instance, a place in the Dominican Republic
the DR,
where this works out, and there's an impressive young woman who has moved up from a call center person to someone who designs bots. But the numbers don't match out, right? I mean, there's only going to be a few of her, a handful of her, and there's going to be a lot of people who lose their jobs along the way.
Not really. So, yes, these jobs should go away. And there's about 2 million people in these jobs around the world. So they should go away. But not like go away. What we found is the best conversationalists are people who work in contact centers, not technical people. Mm-hmm. So when 4 or 5 years ago, everyone thought bot builders should be tech people or data scientists, or it's not. It's the people sitting in contact centers. So right now, they should be bot builders. And the other thing is that...
Why? Because they understand how people think and they know how to talk to people.
Totally. Like, I've spent my whole life with this group. First of all, people who work in contact centers are extraordinary people. Like, they're not what people think. They're not taking low-end jobs because they can't get a job anywhere. They actually love people, and they're like, want to help people. It's not what you think. But they understand how to converse in a way where they're not looking at you. They're not a friend of yours, but they're trying to make you comfortable. Mm-hmm. So they understand how to do these conversations very, very high quality. So we built a tool set that they can use it not being technical, and they can change their jobs. Now, it's only going to go so far in the contact center world, so they need to be doing other things. For instance, everything around here will be powered by conversational user experiences. Turn on the lights, this, that. I mean, everything. Think of a world, our cars, everything's going to be powered by these conversational experiences. We're going to need a lot more conversational designers. There's a dearth of them right now. We can't find them. If you go on LinkedIn, there's more of them than 4 years ago, but like conversational design, you can't find them. It's hard.
Is it because they're all looking for people with the technical background when they don't actually need to?
That's correct. So, and we've trained these agents so then they become conversational designers. The world needs 2 million conversational designers today.
Okay, I'm going to tell my kid that's the job that he should aim for, conversational designer.
Yeah, it's a great job, by the way. And you're building automations. Think about even this whole idea of the metaverse. And that's a whole, think of this concept of the metaverse, which I think we could talk about that. But let's say that exists. There will be virtual worlds. There will be conversational AI going inside there. With brands will be sitting there with their avatars talking to you about something, and that's going to need a conversational designer. It's not going to be a human typing or talking through the avatar. It'll be an AI.
Okay, interesting. Something to think about here. The value of AI obviously is there, and it's obvious. But how do you convince, again, old school customers like me to stop resisting the use of automation and responses and bots when dealing with companies? I hear everything you're saying, but that temptation press 0 a million times until someone picks up, or to keep yelling representative into the phone until I get a human person is there. And I suspect I'm not the only one.
Of course, there's still billions of phone calls that happen every year. I will say one thing: we're delivering voice shortly in the next couple of months. It'll be a voice AI. So I'm hoping somebody like yourself that who doesn't want to text, that we're going to give you a voice AI to talk to, and you'll talk to them, and you'll talk to them and feel comfortable with them. I do believe there's.
And I'll know it's AI, or will I think it's a real person? Am I going to be tricked?
We don't trick. We always tell people don't try to trick someone, because what we found is, by the way, you will change your pattern of speech when you know it's an automation. We have 2 measurement styles.
Why, do I turn more rude?
No, you turn more direct. You won't be. So we find in messaging, we have a way to measure human to human. It's called meaningful connection score. And then we have a meaningful automation connection score. They're 2 different scoring systems because humans talk very different when they know it's a bot. So you never want to fake it out. You'll be more precise. You understand that that you need clarity on your intents. So yes, I think I'm hoping the voice AI that we're going to bring, first, I want something better than an Alexa, and I want something that you would feel that is personalized to you.
It's one thing if the AI bot is helping me solve a problem. It's another thing if the AI bot is completing a sale for me. What's the success rate of AI bot completing a sale versus solving a problem?
The sales is very high. So normal web sales is like 1% conversion rate. If you get into...
just 1%?
Yeah, you're lucky if you're 1% in this day and age. It's like web conversions are not great, even from searches, direct searches from Google. we get about a 20% conversion rate of when you get somebody into doing a conversation because it's truly personalized. See, on a web, it's like it's one size fits all, but you have a very need for, let's say, an outdoor grill. And yet it talks about outdoor grills and maybe some specs and all that. But you're like, I've got a need. We see this with outdoor grills. Like, people buy outdoor grills a lot of times because they have a party happening on the weekend.
Right.
And they want to know immediately, can I get it? Is it in stock? Can I ship it? Or they may want to cook a certain thing. I mean, it's very interesting. We did a study on outdoor grills, and we realized a conversational bot has to take all this into consideration. What do you want to use this for? Why are you here? Because I'm here because I got a party. I'm here because I like to cook steaks. I'm here because I know it all. I know more than you do, and I want to tell you that. And I just need affirmation that I know what I'm talking about. We saw this. So the bot has to be very aware of the type of person they're talking to, but that's why they convert at a very high rate.
Okay, the bot has to discern intentions.
Yeah, but a human agent, we had a human, in this case there's one called the Grill Master, and there's an agent in the Dominican Republic who created that thing, and is managing the Grill Master to see when it fails and go back in and perfect it. So there's always a human managing the bot in our world.
Are they managing it live? I mean, do they intervene and override what the bot does?
Yeah, they will intervene. That's one of the things. They'll intervene and then take it over as a live agent, because you never want a bad quality bot. So we have this thing called the tango between the bot and the agent. We're about a year out from a bot self-correcting and self-healing. And so we're about a year away. That would be 4 years of technology to get there, where the bot knows it's failing because we have sentiment in real time. And then it's going to do this thing called small talk. We just created that this quarter. It does a little small talk with you.
What, like, tells a joke and is like, hold on one second.
You can probably, what's going on, by the way? Where's weather? So it needs to take a little time. And then it's going to recommend 3 things, not to you, but to a live agent. Live agent will pick them. And then eventually it will know what to put in. So that's kind of where we are with the technology.
So the bot is stalling for time.
Bot's like a human would.
Okay.
Like for a second, not,
Right.
But they call it small talk engine. So it's got it, because if you ask me questions and I start failing, and then I just jump to something, you need a little bit of break in between, like, hang on one second, let me figure this out, or, I'm trying to understand this a little bit better, or you need a little bit of that versus trying to just throw another thing at you. So.
Got it.
This is the type of stuff we think in the AI world.
And lots of specific questions about grills as well.
No, because bots are a 4-letter word to me. Most of them they're terrible. That's why I look. Most bots you see.
Aside from your bots, which bots are you most impressed with then? Like, what's an experience or an encounter with a bot where you're like, wow, that was good?
Unfortunately, I'm biased, so.
You haven't thought that about anyone else's bots?
No, I know we're leading this field, and people just put up the worst stuff, and it's embarrassing. And
but they figure something is better than nothing, right? They're not going for perfection; they're going for scale.
Yeah, but then somebody like yourself hates it, and you go, "This sucks," and you're like, "I don't want to use this." And the decision makers at brands are like, "I use this on a website, and it stinks, and I'm not going to give this to my customers." So I don't really think it's that great. I'm not trying to be, I just think no one's really nailed it. Now, we've got Chipotle has a pepper pot, which you can order the burrito. During pandemic, people could get burritos, pick them up at the door, really cool. We have so many cool little things that are going on with Dunkin' Donuts, like loyalty. Like, they're using these things for all sorts of things outside of contact centers.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about COVID and the impact on your business. I take it's been nothing short of positive when it's hard to get people to call center or to do the things that we were able to do before, and it's just accelerated the automation and the technological, because this is not even a word, the automation and the acceleration of technology in our lives, right? And that's been just 100% positive for you?
Yeah, accelerated our revenues by 1 year, and growth rates, went up, 27% again this year.
And it's sticky.
So we weren't some COVID bubble. It just accelerated what was happening. Our business was really growing nicely, but it really accelerated. We pulled in revenue a year ahead because the contact center shut down, and it was like a mad dash to give me the bot, because we can't get humans on. But then after the dust settled, I remember a lot of our big customers were like, never let a crisis not be an opportunity. Right. And they're like, we've been wanting to do this for years, and we broke the contact center model. It got broken. And through breaking it, we're able to transform it, because it's so stuck People are still trying to go back to it. I can't even believe it, but they're trying to go back to people in a,
Why? What's the thinking there? And it sets them apart?
It's just legacy thinking. Why do people do things that don't make sense? It's legacy.
There's an old Gen Xer at the helm who likes talking to people.
Yeah, I still hear this as a sense that people are important, and I'm not saying they're not. By the way, I think these people are important. It's just that the average contact center rep attrition rate is 40% without COVID. 40% of the people leave the business every year. That's not normal. But there's this thing that it is normal, because this job of having someone screaming in your ear all day is not normal. And why they're screaming in your ear is not because you're not a lovely, caring person. It's because the technology is no good. They got put on hold. They got routed to you. You don't even know who they are.
We go back to that SNL skit.
That's what it is. And they're like, and they're reading a script. They're afraid of getting fired. And I've had contact center reps cry telling their story of their lives. And then they're like, I'm out of here. And I love the business, but I'm out. So it has to change. We're 2021. Like, let's move on,
All right, well, let's move on to the holiday shopping season. I know this was a terrible segue, but business has gotten better overall. Business and the economy have actually done better than what people give it credit for, because a lot more people have been saving money. The government's been generous with benefits. And so when you look at how companies are doing, they're doing pretty well. But there are, of course, all kinds of hiccups with the supply chain issues, with a labor shortage. How is your technology playing into all of that? How do you see that shaking out?
Obviously, the labor shortage, and what happened was during COVID, like massive amounts of retail. Like normally we're doing care centers and banks and telcos and insurance. All of a sudden, retailers show up, and like we shut our businesses down, but we want the retailing feel on our digital properties. So that changed for us. That continues. Labor is it's not coming back yet, and then the shortages also because we're looking at things like catalogs. We're having a conversation with you. Something's not in stock.
Yeah.
Can we recommend something else? We're looking at, I know for one of our home improvement companies, we look at localized stock. Is that not in stock? Do you want to pick it up at the store? Can we find you an alternative? Then also, because messaging stays with you, it's called asynchronous. I could be proactive and say, look, in 2 days I'll update you because I think it'll be back in stock. And so there's we see now is companies want connectivity with their consumers. They don't want to lose them ever again. And they need to scale conversations where humans are not available, like salespeople or customer care people. These are the two things driving the business forward.
Got it. 26 years this month, right? In terms of your being CEO of this company.
November 9th was my 26th.
Which is highly unusual given that, as you said, your crop of CEOs are long gone. People who got through the dot-com bubble and bust have left, moved on to other industries. So that's given you time to be reflective about what you've gone through. I know you keep a journal, so you are kind of constantly in touch with how you think about things. You have a jacket with a David Bowie patch on it, which means a lot to you. Explain to us how this all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, I posted something on LinkedIn the other day. I read from my journal when I ended the kiosk company, and
what was that called, by the way?
Icon, IKON.
Okay.
And I ended that company, and I started this one. I had a couple journal entries, and there was one particular, and I was writing about the fact that I would have to shut down the company, and I wrote, not fulfilling your dreams is a very painful experience, and I was writing this, but I knew it was the right thing, and I wrote that next, and I just said, I hope God takes care of me, I just need help, and so, there's these transitions in your life, but you realize you have to let go of your past, and I think I'm here 26 years later because I learned that it's okay, and even though it's scary, and back then it was more scary, it's okay. Like there's a greater hand that will take care of you. And then I wrote, my heroes. I wrote about my father who died 6 years ago, and my two grandfathers who are also all entrepreneurs. And then I said David Bowie because I used to listen to the song Heroes. We can be heroes just for one day. What's on the other side? And I used to just sometimes I'd crank the music at a level that I just
motivate you,
and not to hear the voice in my head.
The doubts.
Because the voice in my head, when you're alone and you failed, I was sleeping on a couch in a tiny little office. I had a shower at a health club. I didn't have an apartment. I just couldn't listen to what was in my head because it was not very positive, and I just needed something to drown out the noise
And to move forward. All right, so let's move forward a little bit here because you mentioned Internet 1.0. You were there for that.
Yeah.
In one word, what's Internet 1.0?
Organizing the world's information.
Okay, and Internet 2.0 is?
Apps and social.
Okay.
Bringing people together and providing apps.
So Internet 3.0, I'm guessing, is like blockchain.
Blockchain, yeah.
Crypto.
Yeah, crypto.
Okay, what do you see for LivePerson in Internet 3.0?
I see our future. I see like the future of technology there. I see what's being built there is it's going to solve the problems we feel today with the 1 and 2 version of web, which is centralized power, everything, and the loss of your rights of your data. Okay, and there's a lot of other things, but these are important. And what is being built on blockchain is the concept that you have greater sovereignty. You have greater sovereignty. And I call it like through community you gain sovereignty by being involved with this technology. So the people who are building these systems, they're building them on like the idea of a community of people coming together. Because think of Bitcoin. It's thousands upon thousands of people are mining Bitcoin, working in unison, building one of the biggest brands in the world. There's no CEO, there's no head of marketing, there's nothing. And they're building $1 trillion worth of value, working as this community, and a computer's kind of driving the behavior and the rewards, which is a coin. It's a very different way to work. And I think this is the future of how companies will be built. We see this as a part of a big part of what we'll do in our future. As in, I think AI ultimately needs to sit on a blockchain, and you need to own it as a person. It'll live in your home, but it's a node in which you own, and we can give it the security of the data that you would want to feel comfortable with it. Not like Alexa today, where like Jeff Bezos is looking to your stuff. You want to have greater ownership over that, over your healthcare, everything. And I think blockchain, it goes beyond that, but it gives you a sense of sovereignty. We want sovereignty. We don't want to deal with banks. I don't want to give money in a bank and then they lend it out. I want to lend directly. I don't want to have a lawyer involved in my life. I want to have a contract that's electronic and that's on chain, that can be validated.
So blockchain is accelerating the disintermediation of everything.
The decentralization of power. And what they did, which was so brilliant, is that they realized that if we create companies, startups, and we're funded, which some of them are, and we're centralized, Facebook could buy us. Like this whole thing with the metaverse is a joke because it's Facebook's, obviously they're being threatened by what they're seeing. The true metaverse is in things that are being done on blockchain today. They can't buy it. Normally they would acquire the next Instagram.
But there's no one to buy it from.
They're nonprofits. So that's the thing. So you can't acquire Bitcoin. Like if anybody get their hands on Bitcoin, they would want to acquire it and
control it.
And big tech has the power, but not the power. Even all the money they have, you can't acquire a decentralized protocol. So what's being built there is allowing us to get free from this system, which unfortunately I'm not very proud of.
You can say that technology created the problems and now technology is solving the problems, big tech.
And that's what it is. What you find with this group of people, though, is that they were teenagers during the financial crisis. And they saw something, which was, Occupy Wall Street, if you were here and you went there, and I went and would see the people protesting and stuff, in the end there was no demand. That's why it kind of fizzled out, but there was. Those people who were there and beyond that saw that their families lost their jobs and their homes and everything, and banks got richer and more powerful. And the government did things not to help them and their families. And Bitcoin came out of that world. It came out of that period of time. And there was an idea about centralized power. And then tech started to centralize power by owning your data. And all of that built a foundation layer of saying, we're going to build platforms and a structure that will prevent this past, which is a bad past, to take our futures as young people.
What about the government and regulation? I mean, they're 5 steps, 10 steps, 20 steps behind, as they usually are, but are they going to take a look at that and come right in and clamp down?
Look, they need to regulate parts of it, like stable coins and things like this. There's money going into it, there's investment going into it, and I think it's good that they regulate
What's
parts
your
of
confidence that they'll do it well?
it. I think they're just going to follow. If they follow what they already have, like we're regulated, obviously, we're a public entity, we're security. There are rules to securities which need to be adhered to. There's insider trading and everything else that's happening today. There's market manipulation with coins. If they come in and they take care of that, you're going to have a more efficient marketplace. Where they've got to stop is not trying to prevent the creativity of it. The decentralization of it is what makes it beautiful and what makes it powerful. And we just don't want the government to get in the middle of it. And so, look, I think the government got a real wake-up call because China shut down everything with mining. And now all those miners came here. We're like the #1 mining. And that's money for us. That's like mining is generating revenue. They're going to tax it and make money. And I think ultimately that's where it's going to end up. But it's good to have the government. Also, the way we vote, we could change voting. Voting could all be done like within a day on blockchain. So there's so much there for our future.
Although some vested interests don't want any of that.
But the youth, young people, and I'm an old timer. I go to the conference. I was in LizCon a couple of weeks ago, which is the big conference in crypto. And I'm old to this group. I'm Web 1, but I'm not old in thinking. But they want to shape a world that I'm excited about because I told my wife our kids will work in a DAO, a distributed autonomous organization. They'll work in they'll work in like a Bitcoin type of a thing. They won't work in a centralized company. And the structure that's being built with blockchain makes me so hopeful because if I didn't have blockchain right now in my life and the understanding of it, I would be very down because I'm seeing, again, the centralization of power. Tech is still centralized, banking is still centralized, government's still centralized, and we're seeing the problems are not changing. And we complain and we want this and we're liberals and we're not liberal and it's not about that. We don't have a structure in place to free us. And tech will free us. It will free parts of us. So I have a lot of hope. And I just tell everyone, if you're starting out, get into blockchain, get into crypto.
Okay. Sounds good. Rob LoCascio, thank you so much, founder and CEO of LivePerson. I'm Scarlet Fu. This is Cornell Tech at Bloomberg.